Today's episode is going to be a really fun one because I'm going to share with you guys my biggest and funniest fails here in Poland. And stay till the end because I'm going to tell you about how I got in trouble with the Polish military. That one was really scary. Boom! Boom! Cześć ludzie! What's up people? Hola, JT here. Welcome to another episode. I get all sorts of questions about living here in Poland. How am I learning the language? How is the cost of living? How is social life? As if I have social life. I have two small children, so come on. But of course, people are interested in all sorts of things. And one of those things is in what type of weird situations I've encountered myself here in Poland. I've had my fair share of things happen to me. The first one actually had a lot to do with differences in culture. On the first story, I learned the hard way that Polish people's time is something not to be messed with. And it developed during my brother-in-law's bachelor party. I was invited, so was my mom's husband. We were staying in my wife's hometown, in her parents' house. And there's a hotel next to the house, which is where my mom and her husband were staying. In the afternoon, Karina tells me,
"Hey, listen, my brother says that you guys are gonna go out at 9 o'clock.
And I was just hanging out in the hotel room with my mom. So looking at the clock, or maybe not looking at the clock enough. And my wife calls me, she says,
You're not gonna have time. You should come here because you still have to come, you have to shower, you have to get ready."
At that time, I was, again, I was just fresh Latino. Just barely a couple years into a relationship with my wife, who, by the way, was also kind of like loose with time. She was not as strict, I guess, as your typical Polish person. She is now that we have children, though. She did warn me that I was not going to have enough time. Obviously, I didn't ignore her. It's just that I thought I was going to have time. So I was there chatting with my mom and her husband, and I realized that, maybe I should get going. It's going to be okay. You know, we're going to a party. It's a bachelor party, so come on, there's no stress. We're gonna have fun, right? And I open the door and I enter, and in the living room is my brother-in-law sitting, my father-in-law sitting, my mother-in-law sitting, and my wife also sitting, and their faces. I felt the weight of the disrespect that I was incurring towards the time of my brother-in-law. Now, granted, they didn't yell at me, they were not rude. But their faces, though. It is difficult, guys. It is difficult. Latinos, we live in a completely different system of time understanding. But to my defense, I think that I am actually better. And my wife will be the first one to tell you that I am much better at understanding and respecting Polish time. That particular event made a big difference in me starting to understand that the game was different here in Poland. Because here, there are many ways in how you can disrespect somebody's time. You can, first of all, disrespect them, their persona, because they're waiting for you, they're taking time out of their day to meet you. But you can also disrespect an event. You get invited, and the fact that you were not there on time or something, you're being disrespectful to the event itself. It's an important day. But also, you can be disrespectful to time itself. It's almost like it's its own entity, where everyone is always constantly looking at the clock, and they know how many minutes are left, and they calculate how long it's going to take them to get ready, how long it's going to take them to go downstairs, get the keys, grab the purse, put on the shoes, get in the car. They know how long it's going to be in the traffic. They always leave, 10 minutes more or less, depending, because there could be korki, right? A bunch of things that show you that the respect for time itself here is massively important. Believe me, I learned my lesson. And it's been an ongoing battle of me trying to shed off that Latino-ness that we have when it comes to processing and understanding time. The next story is a really funny one. I actually love this story. To this day, my wife and I still laugh about this story. The year is 2012, and I come to visit my wife for the first time. At the time, we were not even boyfriend and girlfriend. We were just chatting online, and I mustered the energy and the cash to come to Poland from the Dominican Republic. And I did all the wonderful touristic things that you can see here in Warsaw. So one beautiful morning of March 2012, I went on to Galeria Mokotów. I wanted to go see the stores, see the Polish things were here, products, even the language, even reading the Polish language to me in the sign was exotic as heck. At the time, I remember that I used to buy in Dominican Republic these like fizzy tablets that you would just put in your mouth and you suck on them. They were, I don't know, like vitamin C tablets, but they were very delicious. And I saw the Apteca and I went to get the tablet, orange flavor tablets. And I grabbed them and I sat down in Galeria Mokotów. As I'm sitting there comes an old lady, a babcha, and sits next to me. And I opened the first tablet and I put it in my mouth. I have the tablet in my mouth and I start to feel something building up. And I'm not used to anything building up. These tablets, the ones that I usually take, you put them there, nice, tasty flavor, and that's it. But this all this foam building inside my mouth, and I'm like swallowing. A couple seconds later, more foam, and I'm like, what is going on? And I swallow again. I pick up the tube and I'm trying to read. Everything is in Polish. What is this? What the heck is this? And at some point it was so much that the foam started just spilling out of my mouth. I'm looking to the sides to see if I see a bin or if I see a bathroom. Nothing. And this poor lady is sitting next to me, looking at me like, and I am swallowing and spilling out of my mouth. And the babcha just did this slowly, grab on her purse or whatever she had on, and she was like, and she moved to the side just like that. I turned to her and I look at her and I went like, I stood up from there and I ran to the bathroom. Poor babcha is telling the story to some friends of how this very strange young man had some very weird disease with foam spewing out of his mouth. The next story, let me tell you, could have ended up not as happy and fun as it ended up, and literally could have just been the end. I love dark humor, so I'm gonna joke about it. I almost got us killed by a tram in Warsaw. So what happened was that as part of my plan of visiting Warsaw and getting to know Poland a little bit was also going around and visiting other cities. So we went to Kraków. I don't remember what other city, but it was the first time that I went to Karolina's hometown to meet her parents. And we rented a car here in Warsaw. So I went to pick up the car. I don't know, it was maybe like 8 o'clock in the evening. We get the car and we drive out. As we're driving in Warsaw, it's sometimes even worse in other cities, like in Łódź, for example. Oh my God, it's a nightmare in Łódź. But in Warsaw, you have the tram lines that traverse along the big streets. And the problem is that the tram kind of like has priority of sorts. There are lights, of course, that will let the tram stop and go and will give way to cars and passengers and all that stuff. But this is where you get to big intersections. But sometimes you are just literally driving alongside the tram and there's a little opening for you to be able to turn right or turn left and get going in whatever other street that is perpendicular to where the tram is going, right? Like this. And when that happens, you always have to be mindful of the tram, the goddamn tram, because it has priority. As I proceeded to turn left, it was a left turn, I still remember. Guys, there's a little bit of a mystery. I remember shooting the ending of that story when I was recording my episode, and for whatever reason, it's nowhere to be found. But we're gonna finish it here from my studio. The thing is that I turned left, and I gotta tell you that I didn't hear anything. I didn't see any other cars around me. I didn't hear a tram incoming, nothing. Maybe it was the fact that I was enchanted by the beautiful Polish girl that was sitting next to me at the time. But I turned left, and that's when I felt like a very strong gush of wind that brushed the back of my car, and the car did like woo, and both me and Carolina look at each other like, what happened? And that's when we noticed the tram that just passed behind us and was, of course, honking the horn. And we were like, oh my God, masakra po prostu. We were literally centimeters away from, if not losing our lives, at least completely finding ourselves in a major wreckage. I still think about it these days when I am driving around cities in Poland that have trams and all this, and I am like, wow, really? After that moment, I took a deep breath, reviewed a little bit of the rules and trams and who has preference and where, because the problem was that there was no light there. Sometimes you see a light where it lets you go, and there was no light. So thankfully, that story ended up the way it ended up, and I'm here 15 years later telling you about it. And it was not basically the end of my life story. Imagine the irony. I come to Poland for love, and then I find death. But that was not the case. Children, when you start driving, make sure you know the rules of trams. Now is the time to tell you about the story of how I got in trouble with the Polish military and how I was locked in a little room for 4 hours and I was almost sent back home. It was a very scary moment. It was a very uncomfortable situation that happened at the airport in Łódź. At the time, we were still living in London. I had gone to the Polish consulate maybe a few months before to renew my Schengen visa because I knew that we were gonna come to Poland, and the problem started when my still current visa at the time had not yet expired. So for the sake of the video, let's say that the current visa that I had expired in June 13th. I went there, handed my passport, and they told me we're gonna process it and we're gonna send it to you. The passport came, all right, and I just made sure to open the visa and to see that they had given me whatever X amount of time and I was free to come to Poland. When we landed in Łódź, I go to the passport control, and you guys have seen the passport control, guys. You know what I'm talking about. Even you Poles, when you enter passport control, you get a little bit nervous because they don't look friendly at all. The guys looking at my passport, looking at the passport, looking at me. A Dominican passport is not like, I don't know, Brazilian passport, even Colombian passport. Those are countries that are more well known than Dominican Republic. Unless you have specific interest, unless you've been to Punta Cana, unless you follow baseball, unless you know geography and you are interested in that. But in general, Dominican Republic is not that well known as Mexico. So the guy's already looking at my passport and looking at me and my passport. You know, Carolina was there, Vigo was there, Vigo's already born. And he goes to talk to a colleague. And then he comes back and looks at it again and tries to scan something and goes back and gets two more colleagues. At this point, I'm just a little nervous already because I am like, what's going on? It took so long for him to verify everything he was verifying on the passport that everyone that was behind us just kept going. And lo and behold, the gentleman says to my wife, Carolina, mame problem. What happened was that when I went to get the new visa, I don't know if it was a mistake. I don't know if it was mandatory. I don't know. It had never happened to me before. But let's say the visa expired in June 13th, the older visa, and the new visa, instead of starting on June 14th, it started somewhere like 3 or 4 days after. So for a brief window of like 2 days, I think it was, or 3 days, I didn't have Polish visa. And that is the day that I was trying to enter Poland. The hard thing for me was the fact that I did have a valid visa for 2 years. It just that it did not start on that very day that I was standing in front of that officer. And let me tell you, that was a situation because, first of all, you have to understand, when you're dealing with countries like mine, as much as I love the Dominican Republic, and I don't think that this is a particular problem of the Dominican Republic, there's some of the fault that comes, from the fact that, yeah, we are developing economies and we have people that sometimes go abroad illegally, and yeah, those people, sadly, they build a bad reputation for the rest of us. But having said that, there is such a thing as passport privilege. And when you don't have one of those privileged passports, you're going to be put in some sort of, line to the side where everything you do, because you're holding that passport, is going to be scrutinized even more. But there's nothing you can do about it, right? You can sit and cry in a corner, or you can just power through, and that's it, and hand over your passport with the biggest amount of pride that you can, which is what I do, because I'm very proud to be Dominican. So the guy's there checking. I have this passport from Dominican Republic. He doesn't know if it's a fake thing. Am I one of those dudes marrying a Polish woman just to trick her and coming to Poland and stay illegally? What is going on? Like this was not a comfortable situation. Like they were analyzing every movement that I was, everything basically, and they tried to contact the embassy and consulate in the UK, London. But of course, it was already like 8 or 9 o'clock. It was closed. There was nothing to do. After like 3 or 4 hours in a little room, like a like a criminal, they contacted somebody. You know, my wife knew the law, which was that as a person married to a Polish national, as long as I am traveling with her, I could come into Poland. We used to always travel with an original copy of our marriage certificate. And that's what got me through the doors. Otherwise, I would have been sent back on the next plane back to the UK, which probably would have been the next day, because again, this is the airport in Łódź. It's not a big airport. It was already 10 o'clock, so I probably would have slept on the floor of that little room or something, or whatever at the airport. And thankfully, my my wife saved me. Which again, if you have a bad passport, then marry a person that has a good passport. It helps. Jokes aside, thankfully, the Polish military, as scary as they are, did not even put me on the watch list. As far as I know, I don't think I ever was on the watch list in Poland. Well, they gave me my carta pobytu anyway, so I must be clean in my record. Guys, we made it to the end of this episode. Sorry for the sound. Something happened to my lapel mic and it died. But thank you. Honestly, some of the stories were funny. Some were not so funny back then, but they're funny now. And I'm sure some more things will happen. There are a couple stories that I left out. And maybe if you guys enjoyed this episode, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll make a part 2 and also share those. By the way, if you have encountered any situation that is either funny, amusing, or just massacre, share it in the comment box below. It doesn't have to be in Poland. It can be anywhere else that you've been. See you on another episode. Adios.